Welcome back. This is episode number 339 of the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. Just before we get started, please remember that nothing that you hear on this podcast should be considered medical advice or otherwise. Please always consult your medical team before making any changes to your diabetes management. Okay, we got that out of the way. Graham, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, man. There's some good stuff happening in diabetes right now, so we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff happening.
What about you specifically? We're talking offline. You mentioned you're getting back on the inhalable insulin.
Yeah, I got back on inhalable insulin finally. Insurance, after months of going back and forth, finally got it approved. So I'm back on inhalable insulin, and my blood sugars are freaking fantastic. It's always the for me. It's always the thought process of what is working for you, and I really like using Afrezza because I can attack the high blood sugars really fast instead of having to wait 2 or 3 hours for them to come down. Like, if I'm 200, I can take a 4 unit or an 8 unit, which actually equates to 2 units or 4 units in regular Humalog, Novolog, MGev, or Fiast. Take that real quick and it brings it down within 30 to 45 minutes if it's working. So it allows me to be really aggressive with my management, which keeps me very stable. So that's exciting.
So when did you have the aha moment that this was the best insulin for you? Was it a while ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago when I used Afrezza on pumping and used Afrezza on MDI. I like the flexibility of MDI. It's really freaking easy. I don't have to deal with an insulin pump. So Afrezza is really helping bridge the gap between not having an insulin pump and all of the other things that are going on. So it's really easy. I find being on MDI is actually easier for me using Afrezza and utilizing Afrezza than it is being on a pump and utilizing Afrezza or even not utilizing Afrezza.
Does Afrezza fall under MDI then?
Yes. So
Okay.
I would consider anything that is not an insulin pump or isn't utilized with an algorithm or some type of settings would be considered MDI. So if you're just using Afrezza, you're on MDI.
I always have a notepad in front of me because I like to write things out and see it. I'll never forget you and I were talking in my basement, 2 type 1s a long time ago, and you dropped the acronym MDI on me out of nowhere, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Multiple daily injections? I'm like, you mean taking care of my diabetes? Yeah, you mean the way I've always taken care of things?
Yeah.
I assume that acronym came about because of the popularity of insulin pumps and things like that, right?
I don't know when that acronym started. I really don't know, because even after I started an insulin pump, or even before I started an insulin pump, I think I was hearing that acronym.
What was the first thing you were given? Sorry to cut you off. What was the first thing you were given at your first doctor's appointment? Just insulin?
70-30 split. 70-30 insulin pen. Yeah. So 70% of it, 70% of it I think is long acting, and 30% of it was fast acting.
Do they still make that?
I don't know if they still make that actually, but there is, because I've talked to people from Australia that do it, and I think I talked to a guy from UK that does it, that utilizes utilizes long acting Tresiba. I think he was using Tresiba. Medium acting it's not super fast, but it's not like a basal or a long acting insulin. And then he also uses regular insulin, and then also uses Afrezza. So it's like he kind of like hits all of these things at the same time. So when I was having a conversation with him, that it was a cool thing to hear him talk about that. If I can find the episode, I'll put it in the show notes so everyone can go back and listen to it.
If I remember what I just wrote down, it was MPH and regular. And I'll never forget, my mom I think you would pull the regular and add it to the MPH, and you would always she would always shake it up between her hands. And was that right? You add the regular to the MPH?
I think so.
Do you remember this?
I'm not super familiar. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with MPH because I never used it. Right, I've kind of read about it here and there, but no one is on MPH anymore. So
no.
Like over the years, I haven't really looked into it very much. It would be kind of a cool experiment to do with just kind of looking at the history of the condition. But
sure,
yeah.
Well, to go with this, I took a deep dive into a bunch of old school things that you might not be aware of. So I want to ask you about them. Do you know about the first one? That was huge, and I never remembered if you and I have had a discussion about this, the 15-15 rule. Do you know what the 15-15 rule is?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll explain it to the listener. 15 grams of carbohydrates, wait 15 minutes.
Yeah, and it's that's the standard that they teach you in at the doctor's office or at the Endos office. We teach that in diabetes camp. So yeah, the 15-15 rule, which I think is cool. It's a cool rule, and I think it's a really good place to start. But I think the other thing that people get hung up on is like they're like, oh, it's not coming up, or oh, I need more than 15 grams to bring this back up. I'm like, okay, well then take more than 15 grams. Take 20, take 25, take 30, whatever you need to take to bring it back up. Just 15 seems to be a good standard of care to start with, and waiting 15 minutes, because typically most foods or most things that you consume, it's going to hit your blood sugar within 15 to 20 minutes. So that's kind of where I think the 15-15 rule came into play.
So do you follow any version of it? What is your, like, how do you look at a low blood sugar? What is your approach?
I just treat it. The first thing I'm always looking at is insulin on board. How much insulin do I have on board? Because if I'm low or I'm going low and I've got a unit and a half on board, like I might need more than just 15 grams. I might need more than just 20 grams. So I'm going to start with, probably in that scenario, if I've got a unit and a half on board or whatever. And this was more prevalent to my strategy when I was on an insulin pump, because it's just easier to understand how much is actually on board or what the estimated amount is on board. It's harder to do that on an MDI. You got to work backwards and do the math. Like, when did I actually take this? Okay, cool. How, when did I actually take it? How long has it been? Then you gotta work backwards and kind of guess on how much insulin you might have on board. But I will say also, if you put your insulin correction or insulin dosage in the Dexcom app, I think it tells you at various points of the day, like how much insulin you have on board based off of your last entry. I think it does that. I could be totally wrong.
And that was something else we talked about, is that smart insulin.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, but it'll tell you, hey, you took 3 units from me 2 hours ago, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And are you talking about the N-Pen?
It talks to an app, huh?
You're talking about the N-Pen, right?
Yeah, it was that smart insulin that we discussed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure mostly that's the N-Pen by Medtronic.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, because I'm gonna fast fire. I'm gonna fast fire a couple more.
Okay, let's go.
How many times back in the day? How many times have you tested your blood sugar in like a 20 or 30-minute period, just looking for the right blood sugar, just looking for an increase? Like, what's the maximum number of times you've
abused? You corrected for a low?
Yeah, how like before CGM?
Before CGM.
How many times have you, like, what do you think? Like 5 to 6 in an hour? Like
so are you asking me what I used to do, or are you asking me what you should do, or what I believe
Let's say, to your point, let's say you have a moment where there's insulin on board, you just had a really good workout, or you're feeling kind of crappy, you can't get up, no matter what you're doing, you're eating. But this is 15 or 20 years ago, before CGMs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think was the maximum number of blood sugars that you did in a day, just chasing that perfect number? Have you ever had a day where your fingers were really, really like?
Oh yeah, back in the old days. But so the thing that I would say,
what did it take for you to get like a throbbing finger? Like, how many blood sugars in a day?
Gosh, because let me just preface this, okay, before I go into this, right? Because there's a right way to do it and there's obviously a wrong way to do it. I'm going to share the wrong way because it's the way I used to do it before I actually understood how to deal with a glucose monitor, how to look at trends on a CGM, like what actually worked in my daily regimen, right? So what I used to do before CGM, going low, I would find candy. I would find something that I enjoyed. Didn't matter what the heck it was. What did I enjoy? What did I want to have? Because I felt like when I was pulling up a low, it was like, oh, it's treat time. I can do whatever the freak I want, right? I got to bring it up. It's got to come up. not understanding the impact of eating an entire Jolly Rancher, not even understanding the impact of eating, a small bag of Skittles or something. And now you're up at 150, 160, 200 after you've been trying to deal with a low, right? Because it's actually too much sugar. So that's what I used to do. To answer your question about how many times would I test my blood sugar via a glucose monitor to see if it's actually coming up? The answer to previous Ken 1.0 is 0. I didn't test my blood sugar unless I felt low still. If I still felt low, then I would test my blood sugar 10, 15, 20 minutes later. But if I didn't feel low, I'd be like, okay, cool. I'm fine. I can just go about my day. And then later on at lunch or later on at the next time I was going to eat, and I was pretty regimented on making sure I tested my blood sugar before I ate every time. Then I'd be, 200, 250, 260, way out of range of what I wanted to be, or not even close to my target because I overate. I got the munchies, whatever you want to call it, those symptoms that we have, and we just keep eating, either by fear or whatever it is. So that's what I used to do. Now let's talk about what you should do. And this is going to be obviously individual for every single person, right? What you should do is first thing you should do is you should take a breath and tell yourself you're okay, regardless of what the number is, right? This is post CGM. We got CGMs. Okay. Even if you don't have a CGM and you just have a glucose monitor, you feel low, take a breath before you do anything. That breath is going to start relaxing the central nervous system. So there's not so much anxiety. So when you get to the eating piece, you're not going to indulge yourself. Fear might take over, but the breathing piece is very important because it's going to help regulate a little bit, not totally, but help a little bit regulate the central nervous system. Okay. Because that fight or flight process is kind of coming into play when we are so afraid of something or we are having massive anxiety, right? So that's the first thing you got to do is you got to breathe. Take a deep breath, multiple deep breaths, and then go test your blood sugar. Okay. Go test your blood sugar, then treat. Follow the 15 to 15 rule because it works. It works for most people. Okay. If you feel like you need more, eat a little bit more, but don't go 30, 40 grams when you should only maybe use 15 or 20. How many times should you check your blood sugar? I would say that you should check your blood sugar every 15 to 20 minutes. Like, I think that 15-minute rule is a very good rule, especially when you don't have a glucose monitor. So I would look at checking every 15 minutes. Even if you check at 15 minutes and it's come up a little bit and you're fine, you're not low anymore, whatever your low number is, you're not low anymore, I would check again in 15, 20 minutes because one, you might have got an inaccurate reading. It might drop some more. 3, because you don't have arrows telling you, okay, well, it's rising, it's double arrow up, it's single arrow up, it's steady. You don't have those arrows to tell you, okay, well, the 15, 20 grams that you took it was good, right? You came back up to, let's say 100, unicorn, let's go. You came back up to 100 and you're steady. You can't understand that if you're using a glucose monitor. So I would take the next hour or maybe the next 45 minutes and every 15 minutes, check your blood sugar.
Yeah. Okay. I got a really, really good one for you. And I'm wondering if you've ever heard this one. Have you ever looked at the viscosity of your blood? You ever looked at just a fat, like you just hit you prick your finger, you pop out a blood drop and you consider how thin or thick the blood is?
I notice it for sure.
Okay.
I will notice it, but I don't ever sit there and take a magnifying glass or sit there and look at it ever so gently. I'll prick my finger, and as I'm putting it on the test strip, I'm just it's runny, it's thin, and the question becomes when it's runny and thin like that, what does that mean? Most of a lot of the times, not every single time.
I want to ask you something. Do you think that is accurate? That the viscosity of your blood is thicker when your blood sugar is high or thinner when it is low?
I do. Only by experience.
It's not though. By science, it's not true.
Okay, tell me why.
Science will tell you it's not true.
But science isn't always right, so tell me why.
No, because I think it more has to do with breaking the it has to do more with breaking the surface of.
I don't think so. But keep going. Sorry, I keep
No,
interrupting you.
no.
I'm sorry.
No, dude. I did all this ahead of time, And
Yeah.
AI quickly told me that the answer is no, that is not technically possible. But I remember 30 years ago at diabetes camp, I swear that was a thing like 190, 90, 80 years ago, that people would last ditch effort was to just to look at the viscosity of your blood. So
Yeah. I think that it doesn't happen every time. And maybe if you do see a thinner, runnier blood sugar, that might not indicate that you're low. However, I would say from my perspective, okay, every single time it's happened to me, I was low. It never happened to me when I was high, ever.
You know what I would attribute that to? If you're low, you're probably sweatier, and the sweatier you are,
Nope.
the wetter your hands would be.
I have literally done it. I've literally done it just sitting here at my desk working. I feel low. CGM says I'm low. Let me go just check. And it comes out super runny. I've done that before. It's not every single time. It's not every single time. But this is where, like, I feel like science says one thing and experimentation says another thing.
Yeah, I don't
right?
disagree.
And it could be right, right? Science could 100% be right here. 100, like, let's not. Science is science, right? If they've done this research, if they looked at this, if they have an actual real explanation of why the blood is thinning outside of like, oh, you didn't get deep enough into the tissue or whatever. I don't think that's I mean, blood is blood. It's going to come out, right? So I don't know. Like, again, it's my opinion. All I can go off of experimenting with myself, and every single time that it's runny and thin, I'm pretty low.
It's a fun one. All right, last one.
Yeah.
When you're really high, do you ever smell sugar?
Really high.
Do you have like a almost like a heavy scent in your nostrils and your nose? Go ahead. You already know what I'm saying.
Not when I'm high, but sometimes. So I've done this experiment with myself, right? I've noticed it and I've like experimented with it. So what I mean by that is when I smell the sugar piece, it's usually when I'm going to take a piss and I'm going to take a leak.
Yeah.
Like I will smell something. I'm like, man, like that's wow. I hope I don't have ketones on board. I hope I'm not super high.
Yeah.
And stupidly, most of the time, I don't actually test my ketones, even though they're sitting right there on my vanity in the bathroom. The ketone strips are sitting right there for that reason. But then I'll go check my phone and see, like, am I high? Am I super high? How long have I been high? Because if I've been high for hours, over 200, 250, up to 300 for hours, oh, I better go test my ketones for sure. But yeah, I don't walk around and feel hot or like. And I'm high on my CGM, and then all of a sudden I smell it. I've never experienced that. Doesn't mean that might not be a thing. I've just never experienced it. The only ever time that I've experienced like smelling a sugary smell was when I'm taking a leak.
Crazy. That's actually completely wild to me.
Why? What about you?
Like, oh yeah, if I'm way off, it's either a lot of peeing, that
But
sugary.
When do you smell it? Do you smell it only when you pee, or do you smell it even when you're not using the restroom?
It's not like a smell in the air. It's hard to describe. It's almost like it's almost like if you ever had an allergy. It's like
it gets up in
it's like
there.
An
you're
existence.
Like,
it's like an existence up in your sinus area. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck?
I've had it that my legs feel a little bit uncomfortable, because they talk about like circulation and stuff. Like my legs feel heavy. And I'll never forget this. My mom, the number one symptom was sugary breath. That's one thing she will always say. I mean, obviously I was wetting the bed and these things and whatnot, but she absolutely says that it was like a sugary breath.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
Another good one.
Okay, here we go.
While I get away from this, just in general, compared to the average person, how much do you think it takes annually as a type 1 diabetic?
For what?
What does it take in a year?
Financially?
What does it take in a year? How many costs? What amount of costs are you going to incur in a year? Just an average ballpark number. What do you think?
Is there an average that you're going off of?
Compared to the regular Tom, Dick, or Harry.
Hold on.
So you seem to be looking around, but I want a general.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. Last year, my medical expenses from diabetes was $5,600 that came out of my pocket. This is not including
Okay.
this is not including what my insurance paid. I'm just saying out of my own pocket, spent $55,652.67. And I only know this because I did for my taxes.
So
I
this
just finished my
says
taxes.
this is the number that I actually saw in many locations. On average, people with diabetes incur annual medical expenditures of roughly 20,000, which approximately 12,000 is attributable to diabetes. So that again was compared to the average Joe, how much more are you going to be spending on specialists, supplies, all the things? I actually don't think that's technically an accurate number, because there's also a lot of time. There's time that's incurred. There's travel that can be incurred. I met people on a panel recently that are kind of doing what I'm doing. They may live somewhere, but they've kept their doctor in their home state. So they may be living in California or Florida, but they're going back to Indiana or Ohio or things like that. So
yeah. So again, I mean, it's pretty darn close. So 2025, it was about almost $5,700 that came out of my pocket, right? Not that I incurred with insurance costs or whatever. If you had to pay out of pocket, and then 2024 is about $5,300. So I spent $3,000 more dollars in 2025 than I did in 2024 on medical expenses. That's including pharmacy, it's including getting my CGMs from Edge Park, because that's where I used to get the Dexcom from. That's including doctor's visits, pharmacy visits. That's all of it. So I spent I didn't realize that until I just looked. I spent $3,000 more in 2024 than 2025.
And to my point of comparing it to just call it to an average Joe, somebody that doesn't think
have
of going to CVS or the pharmacy
because of chronic condition. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like this one too. People diagnosed with diabetes, on average, have medical expenditures 2.6 times higher than what would be expected without diabetes. So
2.6% higher. Is that what you said?
2.6 times higher.
Okay.
Than what would be expected without diabetes.
It's a lot, man. That could be a lot. And I always think about this in terms of the person that lives freaking paycheck to paycheck. Like, you have this tight budget, but now you have to deal with buying insulin. You have to deal with buying CGMs and buying pump supplies. Like, that can really hurt families financially. And then on top of that, maybe you're a family that has multiple diabetics in the household. That's crazy to me. I've talked to families that have three diabetics, sometimes four diabetics in the family. You take my $56,000, multiply it by 3, like, holy crap.
You said
that's a lot of money.
5,600, not 56,000.
5,600, sorry, 5,600. Yes, thank you.
If you were
$5,600 and divide that by 3, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So.
And what do you think? This is something I always laugh at. Do you think a diabetic is spending more on having the right things in their cupboard as well? Like when it really comes, like when it really comes down to it, after, on average annually, is a type 1 diabetic spending more on, I don't know how else to say it, on having food stocked up, on having the right, on spending more money or spending more time on having the right things around their house than someone that can just...
I would say yes, because I wouldn't put the food aspect in there, because at the end of the day...
You don't think a diabetic is spending more on food annually than...
I don't think
just to have the right things?
So.
Just to have the right things?
But you have to think, Graham, so you have to think about this. Like, what you're saying, it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
All of our expenses that we incur over the year or even over the month are going to impact diabetes in some way, right? So here's a bunch of different examples. I'm a teen female. I'm going to prom. I'm going to buy a specific dress with a specific thing to be able to put my insulin pump on in it, or a way to store my insulin pens in my dress so I don't have to carry all this stuff, right? That's an extra expense that you're incurring because of diabetes, right? When we talk about food, okay, are there specific foods, because you have diabetes, you also have maybe an allergy to something, or you have something other condition because of diabetes.
Yep.
Right? That's another part of the expense. I don't think that food in general is an expense that is incurred by diabetes, because the food that you're going to consume as a diabetic, or the food that you're going to consume as a human, doesn't have anything to do with diabetes. I don't make food decisions because I have diabetes. I make good, healthy food decisions because I want to be a healthy human being. Having diabetes and making that decision is like the added bonus. It's an added bonus for my diabetes because I've chosen to live a healthy lifestyle and eat good quality foods. So for me, the food piece isn't a direct correlation to diabetes. It's the byproduct of having diabetes, if that makes sense.
Oh,
right.
of
And you
course.
have all the other medical expenses and all this stuff, right? Think about if there's an expense when you travel, when you go on a plane, right? Like when you have specific accommodations that you want to have at an amusement park or at a hotel, or if you're going to Disney World, whatever it is, you might have other added expenses because of diabetes, right? So that's all. Like when you said food, I was like, well, I don't really think so, but I can see how you would occur expenses because of food, or you know what I mean? Like, so there's always these crazy expenses that we don't even think about when we have diabetes. And then you have to, and then I always think about the dreaded January 1st when your insurance rolls over and now you have to hit your deductibles, and now you're paying $2,000, $3,000, maybe $4,000 out of pocket and hitting your deductible within the first 30 to 60 days of the year. Like I always think about, because I used to do that too. It's like, okay, well, I better save an extra $3,000 this year because I know on January 1st, I'm going to have to put $3,000-4,000 into buying new supplies for the first quarter of the year. But then I'm going to be good. Then for the most part, everything's either going to be free or I'll be able to use my copay, but it'd be in my copay or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They'll pay 80%, so I'll have to pay a very small amount. So for me, the question has always been, can I subtract or get rid of some of the diabetes expenses? Can I make it cheaper? Which I am now, because I can get insulin now for $35. I can get CGMs now for $10 a CGM at the pharmacy instead of paying hundreds of dollars at Edge Park or a third-party company, right? Because Dexcom now has a program that you can get into. And then Afrezza has a discount code on their website that I use. So instead of being $1,200-$1,500 out of pocket for Afrezza because insurance wasn't paying for it, now it's $35 for a 1 month supply of Afrezza. So I can get all of my stuff for under $200, not even basically almost under $100.
Do you have to be standing when you do the Afrezza, or do you
No. You pretty much just have to be seated up or sitting up. Right? I really can't be laying down because you got to think, yeah, it's a vapor, but gravity's going to help. Like I mean, that's just how I think about it. Maybe you can. I've never tried it sitting down or standing on my head or whatever. I've never tried that stuff.
Is there
I've always been standing or sitting down. No, you don't taste anything. There is a powder, sometimes like I can taste like a powdery substance, but there's no taste to it.
I know I ask you this all the time, but what's the, like, how do I say, what's like the end game? What's the end game with Afrezza? Like we talked recently that they, that they have FDA guidelines of how to transition off of injectable insulin or pump therapy. Hold on. Wait. I like what you just said. Go ahead. You're already answering my question.
I just said it's not going to work for everybody. Like just using Afrezza by itself.
What is that? So what is that? I guess then what does that mean? Like we're already such a select niche group of people that they're just going to market it to a couple 100,000 people. You know what I mean?
But like, that's why most people haven't heard of inhaled insulin, because I don't know for sure, but so many physicians don't even know about it or don't even know enough about it to feel confident enough to prescribe it.
Physicians,
endocrinologists don't know about it.
Okay.
Either they don't know about it or they don't have documentation or they don't have a way to kind of dose for it, right? So I had to talk through with my endocrinologist about how to dose for it. He's like, okay, how many times a day are you taking shots? Like, because the ratios between the two of them aren't the same. It's not the same. So it's completely different, right? So when you visit your endocrinologist and they're putting in your ratios, they're telling the pharmacy and the insurance how much insulin you take a day. There's like a drop down menu that they just choose. Like, okay, this insulin we're taking this much per day. This insulin we're taking this much per day, and that's it. There's no drop down menu. It's like literally have to type in, well, it's this many units of Afrezza, which equates to this much of Novolog, Humalog, Umjev, or Fios. Like, so it's a whole thing, and a lot of endocrinologists don't want to deal with that because they understand synthetic insulin, they understand regular insulin. Where my argument to it is like Afrezza is such a powerful tool that can be used in someone's management or be part of taking over that management where you're just using Afrezza, because people do that too. I don't. Me personally, if you're eating a good quality amount of the right, we'll say, diversification of macronutrients, I just don't know if you can just use if you would be good just to use Afrezza. So the people that I know that do Afrezza and just do Afrezza, they're most likely doing low carb. They're most likely not eating tons of protein and fat. Maybe they're doing more carbohydrates, but not eating tons of protein and fat, because if you're eating tons of protein and fat like I do, Afrezza doesn't work because protein and fat's going to take way longer to digest. Afrezza is going to be out of your system by then, right? So that's why for me, microdosing is great. And I've kind of also changed up how I use Afrezza in regular insulin. But when I first started it, I was just primarily using Afrezza and then just using Lemjev as a microdose. So let's say I'm going to take 60 grams. Okay. For me, I'm on a 1-to-10 ratio. So that would be, I would need to take 6 units of insulin. So I would pretty much take my Afrezza. I would take an 8, which is 4 units of regular, right? So I'd take Afrezza, which is 4 units. And then I would take maybe 1 or 2 units of Lemjev to make up the gap and to help with any protein and fat down the line, right? So again, this is all an art form of how you use the tools to get through the day, to have good stable blood sugars. And I'm telling you right now, everybody that's listening to this is not shit that you fucking learn from your doctor. You learn it from listening to podcasts. You learn it from asking questions on social media or in your Facebook groups or in your groups that you're in. You figure it out by experimenting. They don't teach you this stuff because they don't know. It's not part of their regimen. It's not part of their curriculum. It's not part of their protocol. Their protocol is exactly what Graham said earlier. Take insulin here's your insulin to carb ratio, 1-to-10, whatever it is. You're eating 50 grams. You take 5 units. Make sure you pre-bolus for 15 minutes. If you go low, cover for 15 grams and wait 15 minutes. That's literally their protocol. And where that works most of the time or sometimes, it doesn't work every single time. So all of us who get frustrated, overwhelmed, confused, pissed off when I take six units for 60 grams, but then I still go high, or it doesn't do anything, or maybe I go low because I took too much, even though that's my ratio. That's why I always say, like, understanding what's happened in the past, what's happening right now in the present, what is your blood sugar, how much insulin do you have on board, and what's happening in the future. Those are 3 components you need to understand before you actually dose. That was a long-winded answer to your question.
So is there anybody who is on just a basal and inhalable insulin? Or is everybody like you? Is everybody manipulating?
That's what I said earlier.
So it's not just...
all depend on the person.
Okay.
It's not... No, you can use either option, right? I mean, some people say that they're just on Afrezza. Some people say like that they kind of do what I do, where they'll use Afrezza as a tool, or they'll use it as their primary and use microdosing, for if they need a little bit more, but they can't take another unit or another cartridge of Afrezza because it'd be too much, right? So there isn't one size fits all in any of this. Even when you're on an insulin pump, even when you're on MDI, like me and Graham, there isn't one size fits all. It is our job to figure out what works and have an understanding that's going to work 80% of the time.
So this will lead me into asking a big question. Advocating for yourself. Something that we've always spoken about, something that we've always hit on big time. Explain to somebody listening the value in bringing information to an endocrinologist appointment.
It is your number one job when you're going into that appointment.
But isn't that so different from every other... Doesn't that feel so different from every other encounter with a doctor? Like, people go there to have their questions answered versus we're coming with a solution and we just want their approval.
We're not coming with a solution, so don't get them mixed up, right? So
well,
our job is not to come with a solution, because if you're going in with a solution, you have the solution. What is the point of even going? Why are you even wasting your time going in there?
Well, I
If
don't
you
know if that's
already have the
necessarily true.
solution.
Hold on. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because you probably went to your endo with a mapped out idea of what you wanted, of how you wanted to take care of your diabetes, and all you just needed was the A-OK from there.
I don't need the A-OK, but that's not it at all.
But do you agree with
I don't
it?
have the solution.
You kind of agree with what I was saying?
No.
Yeah, you kind of did.
I don't.
You kind of did.
No, I
hold
don't.
Hold on. Let me say this again.
But hold on.
Let me say
I'm
this
not trying
again.
to get
Hold
the
on.
A-OK.
Hold on. You went to your endo last time, the time before that, like just the way I'm about to go in a week or two.
Yeah.
And half of the appointment will be them asking some questions, but by nature, as type 1 diabetics, we kind of take the reins and give them.
This is the problem, dude, because most people don't take the reins.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, then I don't know why you're shaking your head at what I'm saying.
Because you're saying that as diabetics, we take the reins and we ask questions.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about this.
I don't know if most diabetics even realize that that's a thing either.
100% people do, because I have conversations with people all the time and they say they do that, but then I go deeper into the conversation and they really don't. They're just saying that because they think they can go into the appointment and say, I'm having this symptom. Oh, well, this is what's going on. And they think they're prepared, or they think that there's going to be a solution or whatever. No, that's not. When I say your job is to be prepared to go into that appointment, it doesn't have to be this every single time. Let me just reframe that. If there's something going on, you need to have very specific questions with data. That is what's going to make that 15 to 20 minutes go really smoothly. If I have like fluctuating blood sugars, my A1C's 8 plus or 7 plus or whatever my A1C is, and I'm not happy with that. My doctor's not happy with that. I know it needs to be better. Like, if I'm not going in with very specific things that I think is the problem, so there's information, there's context, there's content to tell this individual, this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to get your CGM data. They're going to get your CGM readings. They're going to look at it for the last 2 weeks. And maybe you did or didn't have a bad last 2 weeks. But if, let's just say you did have a bad 2 weeks, they're going to be like, okay, you're spiking here. It looks like its trend is spiking here. What went on at that point? Oh, I don't know. It was 2 weeks ago. I have no idea. So then they're just going to make an adjustment to your insulin when it's probably not an insulin problem. It's how you are strategizing, moving throughout the day with your food, with your exercise, with your sleep, with your stress, right? All those things could push that thing up. They don't talk about that stuff. And if I am not prepared to at least ask a question based off of those parameters, then I'm just going to sit there and listen to them tell me that I need to make an adjustment to my insulin. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm saying?
Well, are you asking questions or are you defending yourself?
I'm not defending anything, because we shouldn't have to defend ourselves. I'm asking very specific questions. Do you ever feel like you're defending? No, I don't anymore. I used to. 100% I used to.
Yeah.
I don't anymore, because I feel confident in what I'm doing and I feel confident in my decisions every day. Let me give you the example. When I wanted to go on Afrezza, I had no idea how my endo would respond to that, because I've heard horror stories of people up to that point, before I had talked to my endo, who is amazing, I had heard horror stories of people talking to their endo about wanting to make a specific adjustment. I want to go back on MDI. I don't like pumps. I want to get off a CGM, or I want to go on a CGM, or I want to change CGMs. I want to go on Afrezza. And they would be met with, no, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? So I had no idea how this was going to go, but I was very specific and very prepared. So the first question, or the first thing I said to him is, and this specific question would lead into if I had to feel like I had to defend myself, or if I felt like that I had to bring more context to the statement I was saying to him. Okay. So I said to him, I'm really interested in trying Afrezza. I've heard really good things about it. I think it could be a really good tool that I use in my management. And he was like, awesome. I don't know much about it. We've tried to get data on it and they don't give us the data. I have no idea how to dose for this. So let's talk through this. That was literally the conversation. But because I initiated that, I was able to literally sit in that appointment with him for almost 40 minutes talking to him about it. And then now every time I go into him, he asks me about questions about Afrezza. He asks me, how are you using it? Do you like it? Have you had issues with it? What are the good things about it? He's asking me the questions. That right there, to me, is a symbiotic patient-doctor relationship. Because going back and forth or us getting talked to, and this happened to me so many times too, with different endos, like, oh, well, you're not doing X, Y, and Z, or, you know, they're coming at you with all of this negativity because you're trying. There's not one single person that has diabetes that's not actually trying, or at least not trying to put in work. They just don't have the tools to figure it out. That's my belief, right? So you get all this negativity coming at you, and then all of a sudden, right, you just feel down, and you're not going to ask questions. You're not going to engage with them. You're just going to give them one-word answers, and then you're going to leave that appointment and feel like absolute shit because nothing got resolved. If you're prepared with questions of things that you are having trouble with, regardless if you find solution to those questions or not, you will feel way better coming out of that appointment.
Is your endo, is he a young gun?
He's younger, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like you connect more with that type? Like someone who's
I feel
still
like I
learning, kind of almost
him.
like, I don't want to say learning as they go, but, you know, it's like learning as they go versus someone that's...
Yeah. I get what you're saying. He's been an endo for a very long time. He's younger. He's probably in his upper 30s, maybe early 40s. But the reason I connect and I align very much with him is because he listens, he hears me, and he tries to create a solution based off of the information I'm giving him. One of my previous endocrinologists, I'd be trying to advocate for myself or trying to tell them I want to do something, and they're like, I don't think you should do that. Your trends here, it's telling me that we need to adjust your insulin. Not one time. And my endo now only does it because I've said something to him about it. Not one time has an endo initiated into a conversation. How do you feel? What's your nutrition look like? What's your relationship with food? What are you doing for exercise? And maybe no one's ever asked me about exercise because I've been a fitness coach pretty much my entire journey with diabetes. Okay. And then what's your sleep and hydration look like? Not one single one has ever asked me those 4 questions. Now my endo now does because he knows that it's important to me because we've had that conversation. Let me say one more thing and then I want to hear what you have to say. This is why it is so important, regardless of how far you are in this journey of living with this condition. This is why this is so important to have support in whatever way that is for you. Okay. And I would make the argument that just listening and just being a willing witness on social media is not enough. If you are able to take the things that you learn from this podcast, from other podcasts, from social media, from conversations, and put that into action, great. Awesome. If that's not working for you, the number one thing I think you should do is hire a coach. Myself, there's other coaches out there. If you're a female and you feel more comfortable with a female coach, please message me. And you don't want me to be your coach, please message me. I will send you to 2 or 3 different ones that I trust wholeheartedly. This is so important because every single day, every single month, every single year that you go uncontrolled, if you've listened to previous episodes that me and Graham have talked about this, it's taking time off your life. It's putting you in a position mentally where you don't love yourself, you don't love diabetes, and you are in a very close, you're getting ready to be very close to burnout if you're not already there. And that's not a place that you deserve to be. So get the support that you need. I don't care who it's from. I really don't. I just want everyone that's listening to this to just be supported in living with this condition. Because it is a grueling, challenging, and hard condition. If you don't have the mental health, if you don't have the right strategies, if you don't have routines, if you don't have a good relationship with food, if you don't get enough sleep, and you don't exercise every day, it's a very challenging condition to live with. Go ahead, Graham.
No, it's to our same point. I laugh. I've been to an endocrinologist office before, and he's walked into my room, closed the door behind him, and took like a long sigh, like, it's been a long day. And he got to sit in front of me, which is the funniest anomaly, right? Like, he sat down with me, the type 1 diabetic, to have like a real conversation about, and this isn't factual. Like a doctor didn't sit there and say, oh my God, all these people that I've had in front of me, but with his eyes, with the context of what he was talking about, you could tell he was leveling with me, the type 1 diabetic, because as we always say, I'm the one doing all the things right. I'm the one. And I think that's probably been the best compliment that I've ever had, is a doctor telling me, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it, man. Like, I don't need to open up a book. I don't have to write it down on a piece of paper. Whatever's working for you, keep on doing it,
100%.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if you don't put the work in, you can't, like, you're not gonna have the result that you want if you don't put the work in. And we're not saying that you have to be perfect either.
Not only that, but I think there's a misunderstanding of health. I've met a lot of older men, especially, that say, "Yeah, my wife and my doctor say I need to start eating right." And I always laugh, like, you don't feel that way about yourself? Like, why are other people, and I think that probably gets a little bit cumbersome for an endocrinologist or somebody like that,
Oh my God, yes, right? And that is a great point that you bring up, because if you are meeting with your endocrinologist at the end of his day, you might catch him on not the best mood, right? Because he's dealing with so many different personalities, right? And unfortunately, even to my endocrinologist saying, like, so many people are struggling and they don't have the time to put he's even said this to me. They don't have the time and the resources to put into someone's care that's going to make the real impact. The only way, the people that have the most success with diabetes are the ones that can take the little nuggets that they get from their endo, the nuggets they get from social media, the nuggets they get from other people living with the condition, the nuggets they get from podcasts, whatever other resource that they're looking at, and can take those nuggets and put it into something practical that keeps their blood sugars in range and be in really good control. The people that can't do those things for whatever reason, okay, are the people that are struggling. And unfortunately, there's so many people that are struggling because they can't take all the nuggets. And I would also make the argument, there's too many nuggets. There's too many opinions on what can work, what doesn't work, right? And everyone says, like, oh, well, low carb works, but for other people, it doesn't work, right? Because I would never tell someone to go on low carb. I can't stand it, but it just flat out works for people. It really does. And it doesn't throw someone into resentment and doesn't impact their mental health. It's just the way their life is with eating low carb. Great. That's fucking awesome. Do it. Whatever works, freaking do it. Right? So there's so many different opinions. What type of insulin should you use? How much should your pre-bolus be? Like, hey, this happened with my insulin pump. What should I do? Like, there's just so many opinions. For me, I really wish that I had someone like myself, like some of these other coaches that are out there, that I could have been able to at least sit down with and be like, here's the problem. Help me navigate this. Here's the problem. How do I troubleshoot this? I'm dealing with this emotion. How do I deal with this? Right? So it's such a holistic, you need to take a holistic approach to your health in all aspects of your life. Because if you're not doing that, and you're putting a little bit of time and energy over here and not very much time and energy over here, things are going to be out of whack. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all, roses and balloons and it doesn't have to be all, that's why I always talk about having an actual target. If you have an actual target, you have a somewhat goal. So every decision that you're making goes to that target. You're trying to get blood sugar at that target. That's not taught. They just say, hey, just be in range. If you're at 170 all the time, you're in range. You're going to be good. You can do that for a little bit, but you can't do that for a long time. It will catch up to you.
Follow my train of thought. Sucks to have the emotion of caring so much to the point where you're stressed out, you're overwhelmed, and this and that. But the people that are caring that much to the point of stressing out are the ones that are succeeding. Because the people that don't care, or they're just my doctor, my wife, blah blah blah. That's, in my opinion, that's the fault that we've made as a society. But
can I push back on that?
What?
Can I push back on that?
Well, hold on. My point, point too is there is power in, if you keep waking up every morning annoyed with your diabetes, maybe there's a little angel on your shoulder doing that for a reason,
Yeah, I could see that.
That's I guess maybe that's my point.
Yeah. Maybe I don't want to push back as much then. I thought you were going somewhere else with it.
No, I just mean,
because your initial statement sounded like this is what you were saying. it sounded like you were saying the people that are obsessive, that have a little bit of anxiety over all the decisions, look deep into the trends, are like super like into everything. Everything's got to be this way. Those are the people that succeed. That's what I thought you were saying. And that's why I wanted to give pushback, because those are not the people that are going to succeed long term. They might be succeeding in the short term because they figured out what works in the short term. I'm telling, like, I've just dealt with it and I see it all the time. And the words that people say to me on social media in these DMs, when they tell me that they do something specific and it's working for them, but then 3 conversations down the line, they're telling me they're just burnt out with all the decisions. So I promise you, once you figure out what works and you're in a good mental space with how you're doing that, nothing will stop you. I promise nothing will stop you. It's when you are so hyper vigilant and hyper focused on it that it's creating rift in you mentally. It's creating rift in your day. You're just so tired of all the decisions. You're so tired of things. That's when you might get short-term results, but that won't last. And this is all about sustainability. We want this shit to last. Now, does that mean that you can't be so frustrated sometimes because things happen and you want to take a pump break, or you want to take a CGM break, or you want to do this, or you want to do that? Absolutely, do those things. I've taken multiple. I'm on a 2-year pump break right now. It's amazing. So those things, like taking breaks in the way you're managing your diabetes right now, that actually works, and taking a break from that just to maybe realign yourself mentally, totally fine. And then you go right back and you can spend 3-4 more years, 12 months, 6 months doing that hyper vigilant thing. And then you take another break. Like, if that's the way your management works, great. But we can't fool ourselves that being hyper vigilant all the time is going to last forever. It might for some people. There's those one-offs that is just, they're hyper vigilant and it just freaking works for them and they don't care. Doesn't affect their mental health, nothing. And I will say, like, I do not care what your management style is, as long as it doesn't affect your mental health, as long as you don't feel resentful, as long as you don't, you don't have these negative thoughts, then you do whatever is best for you. I'm done.
All right. It was nice chatting.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. I feel like that was like a therapy session episode or something. I think we had
a lot of things that have gone away.
One.
There was a very defined structure in the way you used to think about things long before technology and everything.
Me personally?
No. Like other things that like we kind of talked about here.
Oh, yeah.
You always say, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah,
in some weird way, diabetes is not difficult.
Yeah.
It's dialing it in. It's dialing it in.
It's dialing it in, but it's not as difficult if you have figured out what works. If you're aligned with all the 5 pillars, it's not super challenging. It's not super hard. It's when you have some of these pillars that are out of alignment that it becomes very challenging and very hard. But that's what coaching's for. So yeah, Graham, this was great. Thank you so much for the therapy session. I love when I get to riff. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you got value out of this episode. And please make sure that you follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. If you spend a lot of time on YouTube, or if you just want to go on YouTube and watch the recordings live or in video format, make sure that you follow us on YouTube so you are notified when new episodes drop. But regardless of where you follow us, you'll be notified if you follow us when new episodes drop, which is 2, maybe even 3 times a week. I think there's going to be 3 episodes that drop this week. So, or maybe there's only 2. I think there's going to be 2 that drop tomorrow. Maybe 1 drops tomorrow. I don't know. I have to look at the schedule. Maybe 1 drops tomorrow and another 1 drops Saturday. I have no idea. I'm going to look at the schedule. But yeah, we drop multiple episodes. We'll just say that every single week. So either it's me and Graham, or it's me with a guest, or if it's me just wanting to say something that's on my mind. So make sure you follow us. There's the takeaway. Thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you next time.